My name is Kennedy Burgess, and today I'm going to share with you the events of the Elizabeth Smart kidnapping, including how she was kidnapped, what happened while she was captured or held captive, and how she was rescued. I'm also going to tell you about the people involved and what they claimed their motives were. From this speech, I hope you gain the sense to be less vulnerable, especially concerning the recent changes since the abduction. First, to give you a feel for the situation, I'm going to give some background information on the main people involved. Brian David Mitchell was a very religious man. He grew up in the Mormon church and practiced Mormon religion until the 90s, when he changed his name to Emmanuel and left the church. He grew out a long beard and wore a white robe just to look like Jesus. Every action he did, he claimed to do because of it is what God told him to do in his visions. Mitchell was married twice before marrying 40-year-old Wanda Barzee. He had 2 children and with his first wife, according to Thought CO, Arthur Charles Montaldo, was reported by his second wife to have sexually abused his 3-year-old son, and they got a divorce because of he was sexually harassing her and had 2 kids in foster care. Mitchell was 48 at the time of the abduction and is now 64. Wanda Barzee, his current wife, has 6 kids, and she went along with all of his religious practices. She does not have a good relationship with any of her children, and one refers to her as a monster. She was 56 at the time of the kidnapping and is now 72. Elizabeth was born in 1987 to a Mormon family of 6 children, and she was the second oldest. According to biography.com, she was known as being kind and obedient. She was very intelligent and attended Bryant Intermediate School. She was very talented harp player when she was in middle school. She was 14 at the time she was abducted. The morning of June 5, 2002, demonstrated in a Lifetime movie, I Am Elizabeth Smart, Brian Mitchell snuck into her house, covered her mouth, and held a knife to her throat. He threatened to kill her and her family if she did not go with him. She left the house, but shared a room with her sister, Mary Catherine, who heard his voice and knew that she had heard it before. Nobody else was woken up, so Mary Catherine decided to stay, faking asleep. After leaving the home, the 2 walked for hours into the forest to get to the camp where they would be staying. They met Wanda Barzee there. Mitchell's religious beliefs led him to perform a wedding ceremony where he made Elizabeth his wife, and raped her. While she held him captive, he continued to rape her every night and told her it was for God. He forced her to watch sexual videos and convinced her that he was the prophet. He kept Elizabeth tied up to a tree and most of the time that they stayed in Utah. They later moved to California, then back to Utah. Elizabeth was forced to consume large amounts of alcohol and some drugs. She never ate 3 times a day and was always on the brink of starving. The food that they ate was always stolen. Everything Emmanuel did, he claimed that he did for his religious beliefs. The family continued to search for Elizabeth back home and had 2,000 volunteers helping them. Elizabeth's sister remembered where she had heard the voice before. Emmanuel, she said, was the family's handyman who had worked for the family performing yard work and fixing the roof before the abduction. The family hired an artist to draw the face of the man Mary Catherine had described. The picture was shown on television, and the police discovered his name was actually Brian David Mitchell. On March 12, 2003, a man spotted them walking in Sandy, California. Elizabeth was wearing a wig, veil, and sunglasses. The cops arrested Mitchell and his wife. Elizabeth returned to her family that night after 280 days of not seeing her family. According to Elizabeth Chuck, an NBC News reporter, it wasn't until December 2010 that Mitchell was sentenced to life in prison and found guilty of kidnapping with intentions of engaging in sexual activity. Barzee received 15 years in prison, but got credit for the time she spent between the arrest and the trial, so she got out last month. The reason it was so long for the ruling in the case is because they had to consider his religious beliefs. He thought he was the prophet, and they had to consider that. Since her abduction, Elizabeth has graduated from Birmingham Young University, where she studied music. She became an activist on behalf of kidnapping survivors and child victims of violence and sexual abuse. She's now 30 years old, married, and has 2 kids. The relevance of this speech is due to the recent change in the case because Barzee is now out of prison. Understanding the abductor and the abducted and what happened during the time of the kidnapping and how it ended will help all of you understand the significance of Barzee being released from prison.